I'm not telling this story to scare anyone. I'm telling it because staying silent feels worse. There are moments when you realize something is wrong, not because of what you see, but because of what stops happening. For me, it was the silence. Not normal silence. Not the kind you get at night when traffic dies down and your brain finally rests. This was a silence that felt intentional, like something had paused to listen. Before any of this happened, I was a sound editor. I spent my days cleaning up background noise, removing breaths, cutting out long pauses between words. Silence was my job. I knew what it was supposed to feel like. This wasn't it. This silence had weight. I was 36 when I rented the house in Blackwood County, Pennsylvania. Recently divorced, no kids, no pets, no reason to stay where I was. I wanted distance from people, from memories, from conversations that always circled back to the same questions. How are you holding up? Are you okay? Have you tried dating again? I told everyone I just needed space. What I really wanted was to disappear without dying. Blackwood County showed up in a rental listing at 2 a.m, one of those nights where sleep refuses to come and your thumb keeps scrolling because stopping would mean thinking. The photos loaded slowly. Bad signal. The house looked old but intact. White siding, dark roof, front porch sagging slightly in the middle. Trees everywhere. No neighbors in sight. 3 months. Fully furnished. Insanely cheap. I checked the address on Google Maps. The street view image was blurred, like the camera had failed mid-shot. That should have been a warning. I ignored it. The landlord's name was Harold Whitman. His voice on the phone was calm, almost soothing. He didn't ask many questions, just how long I planned to stay, if I worked from home, and if I'd be alone. When I said yes, there was a pause. "That's good," he said. "This place does better with one person." I laughed, expecting a joke. He didn't laugh back. We met 2 days later. The drive into Blackwood County felt longer than it should have. Roads narrowed without signs. Trees pressed in from both sides. My GPS lost signal 20 minutes out and never recovered. Harold was already there when I arrived, standing on the porch like he'd been waiting a while. He looked older in person, late 60s, maybe early 70s. Thin, pale, his eyes had that distant look people get when they've seen something they don't talk about. He unlocked the door and stepped aside. The house smelled like dust and cold wood. Not moldy, not rotten, just old. The kind of smell that sticks to abandoned places and never fully leaves. "The basement's locked," he said casually. "No reason to go down there." I nodded, didn't question it. As we walked through, the floorboards creaked under every step. But it wasn't random. Each creak followed my movement exactly, like a delayed echo. I joked about it being haunted. Harold stopped walking. Slowly, he turned and looked at me. "If you hear something," he said, "don't answer it, even if it sounds familiar." I smiled awkwardly and said sure, thinking he was playing along with the joke. He didn't smile back. The first few days were quiet, too quiet. No distant sirens, no passing cars, no dogs barking. At night, the silence pressed in so hard I kept the TV on just to remind myself other people existed. I unpacked, set up my workstation in the upstairs bedroom, and settled into a routine. Work during the day, microwave dinners, early bed. On the 5th night, I heard footsteps. They came from downstairs, slow, heavy, like someone wearing boots on hardwood. I sat up in bed, heart racing, listening. The steps crossed the living room, stopped, then continued toward the kitchen. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and went downstairs. Every light was off, every door locked, no sign of anyone. I checked the front door, deadbolt still engaged. When I went back upstairs, the footsteps started again. Above me, on the ceiling, directly over my bed. That was the first night I didn't sleep at all. After that, the house started responding. If I cleared my throat, a floorboard would creak seconds later. If I shifted in my chair, something would shift below me. If I stopped moving, the house went completely still. It felt like a conversation where I didn't know the language. The dreams started in the 2nd week. Every night I dreamed of the basement. I'd stand at the bottom of the stairs, staring at walls that seemed to pulse, like they were breathing. Faces would press out from the stone, mouths opening and closing silently. I woke up every night at exactly 3:17 a.m. No alarm, no noise, just the certainty that something had changed. One morning, I noticed scratches on the hallway wall. Thin lines, shallow, like fingernails dragged across paint. They weren't there the day before. Each morning, there were more, always higher up. like something was stretching. I called Harold. I asked him directly if someone had died in the house. There was a long pause. Then he said, "People don't die there. They stay." I demanded an explanation. He told me the house was built in 1906 by a man named Edwin Hale, a mortician. Edwin believed buildings could hold souls the way lungs hold air, that if someone died confused enough, lonely enough, the place they were in would absorb them. Edwin didn't bury the dead. He kept them. When authorities finally investigated, they found sealed rooms inside the walls, bones, hair, teeth. Edwin vanished before he could be arrested. The house was condemned, then reopened decades later. Every tenant reported disturbances. Every tenant left early, except the ones who didn't. That night, I heard my ex-wife's voice calling my name from the kitchen. Perfect, exact, down to the way she used to sound when she wanted me to come talk. I didn't answer. The voice repeated itself, louder, closer. When I stayed silent, the voice changed. It became my own, begging, crying. I locked myself in the bedroom and stayed there until sunrise. The basement door was open in the morning. I know I locked it. I went down anyway. The walls were covered in names, hundreds of them, scratched, carved, written. Some dated back over a century. Some were recent. One was mine, written neatly, like it was waiting. And that's when the house stopped pretending.
And that's when the house stopped pretending. Up until that moment, everything it had done could be explained away if someone really wanted to lie to themselves. Stress, sleep deprivation, grief, isolation, old wiring, old wood, an old mind cracking under pressure. I tried to cling to those explanations, even as they fell apart in my hands. But after I saw my name on that wall, written in clean, deliberate strokes, the house no longer bothered hiding what it was. The temperature dropped so fast my breath fogged in front of me. The basement light flickered, then steadied, brighter than before. I hadn't touched the switch. The names on the walls began to change. At first, I thought my eyes were adjusting, that the shadows were playing tricks on me. Then I realized the letters were moving, slowly, subtly, like ink being dragged through wet paint. Names stretched, compressed, shifted positions, rearranging themselves until patterns emerged. Family names clustered together, dates aligned. Some names were scratched out entirely, overwritten by others. Mine stayed exactly where it was. I backed away, my heel hitting the bottom step. The stairs creaked in response, not beneath my foot, but all at once, from top to bottom, as if something heavy had just climbed them. I ran upstairs and slammed the basement door shut. The lock turned by itself. Click. From that point on, time stopped behaving normally. Minutes stretched into hours, hours collapsed into seconds. I would sit down at my desk to work and look up to find it dark outside, with no memory of the day passing. Other times, I'd swear only a few minutes had gone by, only to find entire emails written in my own typing style that I didn't remember sending. The house began returning things it had taken. A mug I'd lost on the second day appeared on my nightstand, filled with cold coffee that smelled weeks old. A missing sock was folded neatly on my chair. My phone charger showed up plugged into an outlet I never used. Always placed, never dropped. The sounds grew clearer, not whispers anymore. Conversations. I'd hear a man arguing with someone about money through the living room wall, a woman crying softly in the hallway, a child asking the same question over and over, voice growing more desperate each time. Sometimes they noticed me. Sometimes a voice would stop mid-sentence and say, "Do you hear that?" Or, "Someone else is here." I stopped using my name out loud. I stopped thinking it too, whenever I could. I was afraid the house would catch it again, the way it had caught my ex-wife's voice, the way it had caught mine. Sleep became impossible. Whenever I closed my eyes, I felt pressure, like something leaning in close, studying me. I started sleeping in short bursts, sitting upright with the lights on, back pressed against a wall. On the 18th night, the mirrors changed. I noticed it while brushing my teeth. My reflection lagged slightly behind my movements, just enough to feel wrong. When I leaned closer, my reflection didn't. It smiled. Not my smile. Wider. Slower. I shattered the mirror with my elbow. The house reacted immediately. Every door slammed at once. The walls vibrated, a deep, low sound passing through them, like a massive breath being drawn in. Then came the knocking. Not from the walls. from inside the furniture, inside the floor, inside my skull. 3. Slow. Taps. Pause. 3. More. I screamed for it to stop. The knocking stopped. The house learned something that night. After that, it stopped mimicking voices from my past and started using the ones I heard daily, podcast hosts I edited, commercial voiceovers, news anchors, people I'd never met, speaking from the vents, the pipes, the walls. Familiarity without attachment. Safer bait. I tried leaving again. My car started this time. I packed only essentials: laptop, wallet, phone, keys. I didn't look at the walls as I passed them. I didn't listen when the house creaked behind me like it was disappointed. The moment I pulled onto the road, the engine stalled. Dead silence. No warning lights, no sputtering, just off. My phone rang. No signal, but it rang. The caller ID read my name. I didn't answer. The voicemail notification appeared instantly. One new message. I don't know why I listened to it. Part of me wanted proof I was still sane, that this was all some elaborate breakdown I could eventually explain. The message was me, my voice, calm, tired. You can't leave yet, it said. You haven't finished listening. The car doors locked. Inside the house, every light turned on at once. I don't remember getting out of the car. I remember standing in the living room, barefoot, staring at the walls as they pulsed and shifted. The names were everywhere now. Ceiling, floor, windows. Some were carved so deep they'd split the wood. Others were barely visible, like they were fading. A few names repeated over and over, scratched again and again, desperate to stay. The voices grew louder. Not chaotic. Organized. Layered. Like a choir tuning itself. I realized then what the house was doing. It wasn't haunting me. It was recording me. My footsteps, my breathing, my words, my silences. Every reaction fed it more data, or material. That's why Harold told me not to answer. Answering taught it how to speak. The basement door opened again. I didn't fight it this time. The stairs felt softer under my feet, like the wood had grown warm, almost pliable. The air smelled metallic and sweet, like blood and old paper. At the bottom, the walls no longer looked like stone. They looked like skin. Veins ran through them, pulsing slowly. Faces pressed out from the surface, eyes closed, mouths sewn shut with cracks in the wall. In the center of the basement was a chair. Wooden, simple, freshly cleaned. Behind it, written larger than any other name, was Edwin Hale. The name pulsed. The house spoke without sound, not in words, but in understanding. Edwin hadn't vanished. He'd been the first. The house hadn't been built to hold people. It had been built to become one. Every voice, every memory, every identity, layered on top of the last, forming something vast and incomplete. It needed listeners. It needed witnesses. It needed me. I don't remember sitting down, but I was suddenly in the chair. The walls leaned in. The voices softened, almost gentle now. They showed me fragments. A woman in the 1940s, hiding from her husband. A man in the 70s, running from dead. A teenager in the 90s, nowhere else to go. All of them alone, all of them quiet, all of them listening. The house didn't take them by force. It waited. I don't know how long I was there. Time dissolved completely. At some point, I started speaking, telling the house about myself, my job, my marriage, my failures, my loneliness. Every word made the walls thrum with pleasure. When I finally stopped talking, exhausted, the house answered. Not with sound, with silence. Perfect, absolute silence. I woke up on the side of a highway, miles from Blackwood County. Dehydrated, sunburned, barefoot. The police I had been missing for 4 days. The house burned down the same night I disappeared. Electrical fire, total loss. No remains found. No basement. No names. They called it a tragic accident. I didn't correct them. Now, I live in an apartment in a city. Sirens, traffic, neighbors, noise all the time. I keep the TV on, the radio on, anything to avoid silence. Because sometimes, late at night, when everything lines up just right, and the noise dips for a second, I feel it listening. And somewhere far away, something taps 3 times. Still keeping score. I tried to convince myself it was over. For the first few weeks after the hospital released me, I stayed awake as much as possible. I filled every moment with sound. Television running even when I wasn't watching. Music playing quietly beneath podcasts, beneath audiobooks, beneath white noise. I layered audio the way someone stacks locks on a door. Silence felt dangerous now,
Silence felt like an invitation. Doctors called it an acute stress reaction. Temporary psychosis triggered by isolation and unresolved grief. They gave it safe names, clean names that fit neatly into reports. They said the mind can fabricate incredibly convincing experiences when deprived of social contact. They said haunted houses aren't real, but trauma is. I nodded, I agreed, I signed papers. I didn't tell them about the knocking, because the knocking didn't stop when the house burned down. It followed me. Not immediately. At first, it was subtle enough that I could ignore it. A faint tapping sound buried beneath city noise. 3 taps, spaced evenly apart, like someone testing a microphone. I'd pause whatever I was listening to, hold my breath. Nothing. Then I'd tell myself I imagined it, and press play again. The first real incident happened a month later. I was back at work, editing a true crime episode. The host paused mid-sentence, letting silence stretch for dramatic effect. I hovered over the mouse, ready to cut it down. In that silence, I heard it clearly. 3. Slow. Taps. Not from my apartment. From inside my headphones. I ripped them off so fast they hit the desk. The audio waveform on my screen was flat. No sound, no spikes. But the silence felt wrong. Thick. Intentional. Like something was waiting for me to respond. I unplugged the headphones and threw them in the trash that night. After that, it started slipping into reflections. Not mirrors exactly. Any surface that could show a suggestion of a face. Dark windows, phone screens when they were off, polished metal in elevators. My reflection would lag just slightly, enough to make my stomach drop. Sometimes it would blink when I didn't. Sometimes its mouth would move when mine stayed still. I stopped looking at myself altogether. Sleep didn't come easily. When it did, it dragged me back to the basement. The walls breathing, the names shifting, the chair waiting. I started writing everything down. Times, sounds, locations. I needed patterns, proof that this wasn't random. That's when I realized something terrifying. The knocking only happened when things went quiet. Never during traffic noise, never during conversation, never when I was actively listening to something else. Only during silence. Only when I wasn't paying attention to anything else. It wasn't haunting me. It was checking if I was listening. I moved apartments, then cities.
I didn't plan to record this last part. In fact, I promised myself I wouldn't. There's something dangerous about turning experiences like this into a story. Stories give things shape. Shape gives them edges. And edges make people think something has a beginning and an end. This doesn't. But the knocking has been getting closer. Not louder, not more aggressive, just closer. Like whatever is doing it doesn't need distance anymore. So I'm recording this while I still understand what's happening, while I can still tell the difference between my thoughts and the ones that don't belong to me. After I realized the house wasn't tied to a place anymore, I tried to live as normally as possible. I forced myself back into routines. Work, groceries, small talk with strangers, the kind of noise people make just to avoid silence. Outwardly, it worked. Inwardly, I was deteriorating. I started catching myself pausing mid-action, head tilted slightly, listening for something I pretended I didn't want to hear. It felt instinctive, like flinching when something moves too fast near your face. The body remembers before the mind does. I stopped editing audio. I couldn't trust myself with it anymore. Silence between words felt like staring into an open mouth. Even music became dangerous. Songs end, tracks fade out. Silence always finds a way in. I switched jobs, data entry, numbers, spreadsheets, no headphones, no pauses. It didn't matter. The knocking no longer needed silence to announce itself. It started showing up in moments of transition, that half second between waking and sleeping, the brief quiet when an elevator stops before the doors open, the gap between thunder and rain. 3 taps. Always 3. I tested a theory I didn't want to be true. One night, I sat perfectly still in my apartment. No music, no TV, no phone, just me and the quiet. I focused on my breathing, steady and slow, like meditation. The knocking came almost immediately. Not from outside, from inside my chest. 3 dull taps, timed exactly with my heartbeat. I understood then that whatever the house had become, it didn't need me to listen anymore. It was already inside. After that, things escalated quickly. I began losing time again, hours disappearing without explanation.
I'd find evidence of conversations I didn't remember having, emails sent in my tone, with my phrasing, discussing things I'd never consciously thought about. Once I found a handwritten note on my kitchen table, my handwriting. It said, "They're quieter when you talk." That terrified me more than anything else, because it meant part of me had already started cooperating. The dreams returned, but they weren't about the basement anymore. They were about cities, apartment buildings, office complexes, hospitals, schools, all places filled with people who paused, who waited, who listened. In the dreams, I wasn't trapped in the walls. I was watching. I saw how it spread, not through fear, through attention. People who noticed patterns others ignored, people who fixated on background noise, people who sat alone long enough to hear what most drowned out. Sound engineers, editors, night shift workers, insomniacs, widowers, caretakers, listeners. The house wasn't evil. That's the part no one wants to hear. It was incomplete. A thing built out of unfinished lives, layered on top of one another, never allowed to end properly. It didn't want to hurt people. It wanted continuity, voices to replace the ones that faded. It needed to be heard so it wouldn't disappear. And the cruel truth is, it was right. Silence does erase things. I lasted another 6 months before I broke. It happened in a grocery store of all places. Bright lights, people everywhere, noise, safe by all logic. I was standing in line when everything went quiet. Not actually quiet, the sounds were still there. Carts rolling, a baby crying, the beep of a scanner. But my attention slipped, just for a second. And in that gap, I felt it clearly. Not knocking this time. Holding. Like hands wrapped gently around my thoughts. Not squeezing. Guiding. I dropped my basket and walked out. I don't remember getting home. I remember sitting on the floor of my apartment, back against the wall, laughing and crying at the same time. Because I finally understood what it wanted from me. It didn't want my body. It didn't want my life. It wanted my awareness, my ability to notice, to listen, to carry it forward. That's when I made a decision. I couldn't destroy it. I couldn't escape it. But I could starve it. I moved again. Somewhere loud, somewhere chaotic. I took a job in a call center. Voices all day. No pauses, no quiet. I slept with fans, radios, and open windows. I filled every crack with sound. Most importantly, I stopped paying attention. When the knocking comes now, I don't react. I don't tense. I don't lean in. I let it pass like background noise. And it does pass. Weaker each time. This recording is a risk. I know that. Putting words to it, giving it shape, letting others listen, that feeds it in a way. But silence feeds it more. So if you're hearing this, here's what you need to know. If you ever notice tapping in the quiet, don't investigate it. If you hear something just beneath the noise, don't focus on it. If you feel the urge to pause and listen more closely, don't. The house isn't looking for belief. It's looking for attention. And the moment you give it that, it learns you. It remembers you. And it never forgets a voice that listens back. I'm ending this recording now. Not because the story is finished, but because the silence is getting heavier again. And I don't want to hear what it has to say next.